Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining and welcome back to Wall Street Silver. Our guest today is our good friend, Mark Yaxley. He is the managing director at Strategic Wealth Preservation. Welcome back, Mark.
I've been happy to be back. It's been a while. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a while, and I'm super grateful for you to come down to Wall Street Silver, talk to everyone about what's going on in the global economy. Where do you see gold and silver going? And of course, we want to talk about that big gold stack behind you. How much is that right there?
Yeah, I haven't run the final numbers, but somewhere in the ballpark of about 5 million US dollars based on today's price.
Nice, pretty good. A lot of the silver and gold stackers love looking at that stuff. But I wanted to bring you on, Mark, to talk to you about the global economy. Where do you see gold and silver going? There's so much chaos happening right now in the markets and in the global economy. Where do you personally see gold and silver going from now until the end of 2024 and then moving forward?
What a great time to ask that question. And up until a few weeks ago, prior to the conflict, it had been a relatively flat market for gold and silver. In fact, the prices were trending down. And then all of that changed on October 7th, obviously with the actions in the Middle East, and now the conflict and the escalation in the conflict. So just to recap really quickly, since October 7th, the gold price is up about $160 an ounce. That's about 9%. Silver's up $1.80 an ounce. These are in US dollars. So up about 7%. That's what we're calling the war premium. So that's basically the premium on top of the spot price, or the additional spot price that we've seen since the conflict started. So the question is now, in terms of the conflict, is what's the duration going to be, and what's the intensity going to be? I.e., is it going to become like a regional conflict where you have Iran involved, where you have Syria getting involved? Obviously, the U.S. is starting to move military assets, and other
Right.
allies moving military assets into the region. So really, I think the price, we've set like a war floor right now on the price. I don't see the price dropping. The question is, how high can it go? So short term, I think you're probably $2,000, $2,100 US gold is very attainable. That brings silver to like $25, $26. But until we see what the next phase of the conflict is, it's difficult to project out to, let's say, the end of 2024. I would be, I don't know too many people that would be able to make that call at this point in time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. And where do you see, like, I know we've talked about the global conflict, but now looking at the Reserve, and they're keeping the interest rates high, and it's really hurting the economy, businesses, even real estate. And now people are talking about the debt servicing on that 32 trillion, and it's basically going to be matching military spending, just the interest alone on that debt every single year. So, is this sustainable? And does it reach a point in the next 5 to 10 years in the U.S. economy where it just heads like the Roman Empire, where it just collapses? There's too much military spending, too much debt, and where does that put precious metals?
Well, I think they certainly have to start focusing a little bit more on domestic policy, and they're going to have to reduce spending in on their foreign policy, which would include, the amount of military assets that they have deployed worldwide and the amount of bases that they have to finance and fund. I think that is pretty obvious. If they
Right.
if their intention is to actually ever run a balanced budget, which there's no indication that that is really in the cards for the U.S. This is an economy built on debt.
Right.
And unfortunately for other countries around the world, they've also adopted that similar policy. In Canada, for us Canadians, it seems to be the way moving forward, and the same could be said about a lot of European countries. So I don't see that trend ending for the US. Obviously, going back to the Fed and the interest rate hikes,
Mhm.
it's starting to have the effect that the Fed, or at least on paper, what they're stating they want to happen, and it's going to make it very uncomfortable for business owners, people that have mortgages. Obviously, it's going to have an impact on the housing market in the U.S.,
Right.
and this carries over into to other countries and other sectors as well. So, on one hand, it is having the desired effect, and so the question becomes, how much tolerance does the US public, and how much tolerance does someone like Donald Trump have for that effect on the economy?
Right.
And then you have two forces basically running into each other, where one is trying to reduce inflation and get it back to a level that's adequate, and on the other hand, you have an economy that runs on debt and basically wants to have as much growth at all times as possible. And when you're interfering with that growth, you're causing a problem politically. So It's going to be really interesting to see what the Fed does next. They have their meeting at the end of October, so
Hmm.
all eyes on that. And obviously that impacts the price of gold. We would like probably to see the pause continue, speaking strictly from the gold side.
Right.
Or if you're a silver investor, we might see a little bit more of an uptick in that sense from the metals if that's the case, but yet to be seen. We'll keep our eyes peeled for Fed Powell's announcement on the 31st.
Yeah, and it's there's a lot of chatter talk online, and it's been going on for about a couple months now. But it's increasing about CBDCs, the central bank digital currency, and where that can head. And will people actually accept it, or will there be a lot of pushback, especially in the U.S.? And how important is it right now, Mark, to own physical assets like gold, the nice stacks behind you, and even silver, like especially with a world heading so towards a digital control where you have no privacy and you have literally no control over your finances if you don't have some physical assets like silver and gold. So how important is it to own that?
Well, it's always been important, Ivan, to be
Right,
honest.
right.
The way that our system works, or has worked for centuries, really, where you have large governments making decisions that impact, regular citizens like you and I, and there's a lot of times when those decisions and those policies are not favorable for us in
Right.
terms of taxation, in terms of loss of privacy, but especially these days, that's all been amplified over the last 10 or 20 years with the invent of the internet, obviously now with the use of digital currencies or digital everything. I mean, just
Hmm.
think of it in very simple terms. I remember when I grew up, and this wasn't that long ago, like you had to go to the bank, withdraw cash. You would use that cash to go and transact with the local business. None of us do that anymore. Everyone uses their Visa card, their debit card, their phone to pay for everything. So everything is already being digitalized, and that
Right.
has become the norm. So when you ask the question, is a central bank digital currency going to be accepted? I don't know if that's really the more important question. I think it's if it becomes policy from government and it is forced upon the population, how many people will allow themselves to adopt?
Right.
Not it'll be forcefully adopted. In fact, just like
Yeah,
when we went through the COVID period, it's like how many of us got the shot, not because we wanted to get the shot, but it's because we were basically told that's what you had to do in order to live a normal life and to function. So I think, really, to
absolutely.
answer your question, that's likely going to be adopted by most people who don't question authority. For us silver gold guys, we tend to question things a little bit more, and at least we have this hedge. We have this physical asset that is outside of the system. So when you talk about owning metal at home, which is a great start, and then maybe I should own some metal in another jurisdiction. Maybe I can get it in a jurisdiction that is not infringing on my privacy as much as they may be,
Absolutely.
for example, in Canada or the United States. I think that's where the conversation, of kind of geo-diversification becomes an important one for people as well.
So I just wanted to let everyone know about our new sponsor, Strategic Wealth Preservation. They are an international precious metals dealer and they are a secured storage provider that have headquarters in the Cayman Islands. The company owns and operates a large Class 3 UL rated vault in the Grand Caymans, and they offer other strategic locations as part of its global storage network. They specialize in the acquisition, secure storage, and liquidation of precious metals for individuals, companies, trusts, and wealth management professionals on behalf of their clients. So if you guys want to check them out, the link is in the description below. And at SWP, at Strategic Wealth Preservation, what do you guys do exactly? And how do you provide service for me? If I wanted to, like, let's say I wanted to get some gold and silver from you, and could you ship it straight to my house in Canada?
We do, yeah, we
Oh, there you
do.
go.
So what do we do is very simple. We sell physical precious metals.
Right.
We focus primarily on bullion, so we don't do collectibles, we don't do rare coins, anything like that. We really focus on, the Royal Canadian Mint products, the U.S. Mint products, their bullion products, other private refiners and LBMA and COMEX approved refineries. So very simple. We sell you the physical metal, and then you have the choice of either taking delivery to your home, whether it be in Canada or the United States. We will drop ship to you,
Hmm.
or we can store it in one of the 10 vaults that we offer. 2 of them are in Canada, 4 in the US, and then 3 of them are in strategic offshore jurisdictions. So basically, fully integrated precious metals dealer and storage provider for gold and silver.
And what's the benefits of, like, let's say instead of me getting some gold here in Canada where they can you never know with all the laws that are changing and with Justin Trudeau, you never know if they could confiscate anything that you have, like for silver and gold or any physical assets. What's the benefits of keeping it off jurisdiction? Yeah, what are the benefits there?
So generally, when someone is considering offshore storage, one of two things that they're concerned about. Primarily, for most people living in Canada and the US, would be privacy. So
Right.
they want to have the least amount of paper trail or records available to the CRA or to the government, whether it be the IRS or the CRA, depending where you're living.
Hmm.
So they're trying to reduce that by dealing with companies that are set up offshore, and by then further storing that metal with a company that is offshore. Because in SWP's case, we're governed by the laws and regulations of the Cayman Islands. We are a regulated company. There, of course, there are laws here in Cayman, so that
Right.
we have to run a well-managed business. But what it means is we don't have any reporting requirements to foreign governments or foreign tax authorities, and that's really key for the clients. That's the privacy, and that's why the entire offshore banking world exists in a sense. It doesn't mean you don't have to pay capital gains taxes, by the way,
Right.
because
Right.
that's what everybody thinks. Oh, I'm going to store there, I don't have to pay tax. That's not true. Your obligation as a Canadian or an American, if you have a capital gain, you still have to pay it. But
Right.
what it does mean is that you have a greater sense of privacy, because we're not sharing your information with your local government.
Absolutely, you nailed it. And heading back to the topic of all the global chaos, and we touched a little bit on CBDCs and the interest rates. Like I know I asked you a little bit earlier, Mark, where do you see the global economy going? But we didn't talk about commercial real estate. How big of an impact would that hit? Or like let's say Powell, the next meeting that comes up, he doesn't raise rates and he pauses. What would happen to the physical metals? Would that shoot them up higher? What would happen to commercial real estate? And what would happen to just every individual their spendings and everything like that?
So a pause would probably be more favorable than a raise for precious metals. That's
Right.
that's the reaction we've seen from gold and silver when there's been a raise. It's kind of been a sell-off period that followed that, and the 2 weeks after the raise. The strength of the US dollar is a direct one-to-one correlation with the price of gold, because it's priced in US dollars. So the stronger the dollar, which right now is historically very strong, the Dixie is like over 106. So a strong US dollar is not good for the gold price in general. If we see a
Hmm.
weakening in the US dollar, then we will see a stronger gold price. So it's a direct correlation. In terms of commercial real estate, I'm not an expert, but I have heard, just in speaking to people, in the finance industry in general, the commercial industry, real estate, is struggling now.
Right.
If you're the owner of large commercial properties, especially office towers in major cities, you're having a really hard time finding occupants. That has a lot to do with people working from home, and obviously the cost to build and or lease is increasing. So companies are more inclined to keep people at home and not
Yeah.
invest in commercial real estate development at this point in time. So, yeah, raising rates is not going to help real estate in general. Anyone who has their mortgage to renew, anyone who's thinking about buying their first home, I mean, it's just a nightmare for us. We heard our parents talking about these crazy interest rates when we were kids, when
Yeah.
they bought their first houses. Then all of a sudden you're looking around at your friends who are in their 30s
Yeah,
and
it's
40s.
crazy.
Is this happening to me? So generally speaking, it's not going to be good. But Fed Powell, you listen to his comments closely. This guy seems very determined to get the job done. Now, I don't know if that's
Yeah.
just his personality. He's been influenced, of course, but he's determined. So I wouldn't be surprised if, yeah, there's going to be some more rate increases coming.
Absolutely. Well, Mark, it's such a huge pleasure having you come down to Wall Street Silver. And if anyone wants to take a look at SWP and what they offer, the link is in the description below, so you can click that there. But again, thank you so much, Mark. It's a huge pleasure coming down here.
Ivan, always a pleasure to visit you guys at Wall Street Silver. You do a great job. Keep up the good work, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Talk to you soon.